Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back from the ad break. You are still watching Prime Live. We are joined by Celeste Louw, who is from the TS Foundation. She's actually a general manager of this trading academy at TS Foundation, which is an organization that is leading the charge against GBV in South Africa. Now, through the Soothing the Nation campaign, TS Foundation is giving voice to survivors, raising awareness about the prevalence of abuse, and providing much needed support services to those that need it. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Prime Live.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Celeste. Now, can you please tell us a bit about TS Foundation?
So TS Foundation is almost 13 years old. It was started from our founder, Mara Glennie's dining room table. So as a survivor, Mara had gone to a police station and they told her to come back on Monday. And she never went back. And so she had the vision of building the kind of services that she never received. So from that has grown TS Foundation, which has various functions. So we know that it's a complicated problem, GBV. So we have various solutions. So the first thing is our Hope Center. Our Hope Center is a 24/7 call center where we take emergency calls. We take calls via social media and various different platforms, and we assess for need and then take people from crisis into healing. So it's a holistic type of service. As well as that, we have an emergency line, a USSD number, which if you use, you can do three things. The first thing is you can find the center closest to you where you could go for assistance, or you can contact our emergency line, which then would put you through to Auras Namola, and they would help you to contact policing and ambulances and those kind of things in an emergency. And then the third thing is that you would get our Speak Up program. So Speak Up is an educational program for the youth, although we see parents also using it, where you can have a courageous conversation about topics that parents generally don't want to speak to you about. Things like consent and diseases, about pregnancy, about hormones. Depression is actually one of our highest watched videos, which is really sad. We also have outreaches where we do hope bags, which are comfort bags for rape survivors, where we have these bags packed and then we send them to TCCs and to FCS units for rape survivors. And then last but not least, we have a training academy which we use to train first responders as well as corporates in how to manage and handle GBV cases.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, at the beginning of the year, TS Foundation launched a campaign called Soothing the Nation. Can you tell us more about this campaign?
So the Soothing the Nation campaign was an initiative that was designed to confront GBV by taking a step back and letting people know that there is somewhere they can go, somewhere they could turn to, a place they could trust to get assistance. So because we offer all our services are free, they're confidential, they're available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, it's almost, we were trying to create the understanding of having a lullaby. And so that is why we used Chula, and that is why we feel that survivors across the nation can know that in that moment they can call, and when they do, we will listen and we will be there to help them find their solutions to their healing journey.
That is very, very beautiful. Now, what role do you think communities can play in supporting survivors and preventing gender-based violence in their neighborhood?
Well, I think, the first thing is to create safe spaces where victims can feel believed and supported. And for us, a person is only a victim until they pick up the phone or ask for help. as soon as they speak up, they are no longer a victim, then they are a survivor, and they need places where they aren't judged and where it's solution driven. But I also think that we need to promote awareness campaigns and education on GBV issue. So there's the proactive approach, which means that we're going to start educating, creating change in community. But then there's the things that happen after an incident has occurred. So after an incident occurred, we need communities that have community watchers, rapid response networks. We need partnerships between government and civil society. We are very, very collaborative in our approach. But we need to encourage people that, if you see something, do something. Because a lot of the time, people just don't do anything. They just leave, watch it, and move on. And, abuse is everyone's problem.
I mean, a lot of times, unfortunately, we still hear people say, somehow find a way to blame women in GBV cases. Sometimes it could be a thing of, oh, she shouldn't have worn that, she shouldn't have made him that angry, like comments that are not necessarily very well informed, and are proof that we still have very ignorant people around the issue. How can we break down these cultural and societal norms that perpetuate abuse and discrimination against women and girls?
Well, we have to have courageous conversations that talk about stereotyping, that talk about women who support the patriarchy, and that talk about systemic inside our cultures and inside our society, inside our workplaces, all of these places where these issues are not discussed and handled. I think that courageous conversation means that we are addressing the issues. And we don't have to always agree, but at least we will have started debating. I also think that we really need media, art, storytelling that shifts those perspectives. So we need to speak in a way that isn't sort of, GBV is about a guy that hurts a woman. That's what it's about. Because that leaves out of large amounts of what the actual underlying problems are.
Most definitely. And unfortunately, GBV is still on the rise, and it's something that we are having to deal with on a daily basis. In your opinion, what is the most powerful way to shift attitude and behavior around gender-based violence in South Africa?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that need to happen. So first of all, we have to shift. We have to talk respect. We have to talk about consent. We need to talk about equality. We need to talk about the lack of morality and moral fiber in society. We need to ask, what do we actually believe, and how are we actually living? And what are we doing to be part of the solution? I think that is really important. But I do think we need to listen to survivors, because, the way that the system is set up now is survivors are set up to always being on the back foot. They have to prove that something happened to them. They have to repeatedly say it, and they have to perform their pain. And I'm saying this as a survivor myself, right? We have to perform our pain for people to take us seriously. Me, I refuse to perform my pain. I have walked a very long road to healing. And I'll talk about my story, I'll do all of those things, but I don't see why I should have to perform my pain and prove that something happened to me that was so horrific, while the person who did that to me can just sit there while I have the whole onus on me. It's the only crime where we don't have systems in place that are going to protect us and say, oh, well, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Because how it is now is you have to prove that something happened to you. The onus is on you. And then you have to do something about your safety. You have to, say, for instance, enforce your protection order. Everything is based on the survivor has to take charge. And so I think we've got a lot of conversation needs to happen around how we handle GBV cases.
Most definitely. And as someone that obviously hears a lot of stories about GBV, deals with, GBV cases around you, what are the biggest misconceptions or misunderstandings that you have come across, in South African cases, but also on a global stage?
I think that the South African problems with GBV are very much global issues. I don't think that the underlying issues and the things that are going on in people's home is any different in South Africa or anywhere else. I think one of the first things is that people kind of try to feel safe by saying, oh, it only happens to people who are poverty stricken, who are uneducated, and who live in ghettos and gangland, because that is an absolute lie. It does not only happen there, it is across the board that GBV is an issue. In all cultures, in all societies, in all religions, from the poorest of the poor to the richest of the rich. What it is a different problem to a specific community problem. It is across the board. So that's one of the biggest myths. I think the other myth is that boys and men can't be victims. And that's a big problem, because if we're going to solve the problem, we have to look at the root causes. And the fact of the matter is many young boys are abused and nothing is done about it. So, which creates an adult problem. The biggest myth I think that I see is that you can just leave and be okay. You can just, you were abused as a child, you walk away, you're okay. You in an abusive relationship, you walk away, you're okay. It is definitely not like that. There is a huge learning curve between walking out of a relationship or growing up and handling everything that's happened to you, because it changes the way that you think and it changes the way that you perceive the world, and it has a lot of repercussions further into your life. So I think those are the biggest myths that I've seen.
And how do you manage to stay motivated and, hopeful in the face of such a complex and, pervasive issue?
I think for me, it's a very personal thing. And I think that each person who works in the GBV sphere, and there are so many different approaches to working in the sphere. But for me, it was a decision when I got out of so I'm a survivor of child abuse and of domestic violence. So when I got out of my domestic violence relationship, it was a choice for me that I made a promise to myself and to the good Lord that anybody who crossed my path who was suffering with the same way that I did, that I would not leave them untended. So for me, it's a passion, and I do it because of that. And I know that every day when I go to work, I have the privilege of being in a job that changes people's lives for the better. So all you have to do is focus on one person a day, and everything over and above that is a bonus. So for me, that's how I keep my spirits up. Also, I see people reclaim their lives and absolutely turn their lives around. That is priceless, and I see that every day.
I mean, that's so beautiful, but I believe, Celeste, that we do have a clip that we have to look at before I let you go on this interview. So viewers at home, let's take a look at this short clip. We'll see you after this.
Hello. Tula tula sana tulupa buzobuya ekuseni.
I mean, that was, I think it's a very short clip, but also quite emotional. I think it says so much in such a short period of time. But one thing that is in my mind is, after also having a conversation with you, is the fact that GBV, or, people that are in a situation of gender-based violence, it's a very complex situation to be in, and it's not a black and white situation. And I think often at times, people that are standing from the outside can easily say, oh, why did she not do this? Or why aren't you doing this? You know, and it's so easy for you to speak, but I think the more stories you hear and the more you try to understand the situation, you understand that I think people need to be listened to. People need empathy and, most importantly, humility. But before I do let you go, is there anything that you'd like to add on to the conversation that we have spoken about, but most importantly, how people that are watching right now can contribute towards the fight against gender-based violence?
I think the thing is, if you see something, do something. And even if that thing that you do is just pick up the phone and dial 08000 83277 and speak to one of our qualified, experienced interventionists so that we can help you, so that we can change the world one person at a time. I also think that we need to use our voices to ask for implementation of our really, really great GBV laws in South Africa. We have some of the best legislation in the world, but it means nothing if it's not implemented. And that's a case-by-case thing. Don't be afraid to call. I know that there are a lot of high-profile cases and people get scared by watching that footage, but you know what? Reach out. There's always more than one solution, and we are very solution-driven. So if I have anything to say, it's pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone.
I mean, Celeste, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and continue doing the great work that you do. And I do hope that you continue having the courage and the hope to helping people, and also being just sometimes listening to whatever comes your way with empathy and humility, just like you have always been doing. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are most welcome. Viewers at home, that was Celeste, who is the General Manager of the Trading Academy at the Tears Foundation. But without wasting any time, let's go to a quick break. We'll see you right after this.